So we'll bring KC Joyner into the conversation as he joins us now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Super Bowl Sunday is finally here. We're breaking down a game. We got a lot of matchups to look at, Casey. How are you?
I'll be, as much as I love the Super Bowl, it'll be nice to not have dozens of hours of Super Bowl coverage every day. It's one game, people. We're going to spend thousands of hours on this. So looking forward to being Super Bowl Friday.
Let me tell you, I held off on talking about this game basically till today. I just could not do it. But here we are, and I do think this game's interesting. I talked about on Wednesday's show, a little bit here and there that I have talked about this game, maybe one segment a day I kind of put forth the show. And one thing I said was, if I go through the schedule and I'm the Patriots, I highlight one game that I can maybe take something from, and that is Philadelphia beating Atlanta. And how did they do it? Why did Atlanta only score 15 points in this game? So if I'm that Patriots staff, I'm looking at that tape, and I want to see what happened. The Eagles, Casey, ran the ball for over 200 yards on the Falcons. They kept the ball away from Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan did not play well in that game. Julio Jones had over 100 yards, but for the most part, the blueprint seems that if the Patriots going to win, it is a combo, LeGarrette Blount and Dion Lewis type of day, because 200 yards rushing. But another thing that stood out, Darren Sproles had 8 catches out of the backfield that day. So that's something that stands out for me.
Yeah, it definitely does. You want to be a running back. You can be a running back-centric team against Atlanta. Their defense gives up a lot of big plays in their secondary, and I think they're going to say, well, Tom Brady led the league in vertical yards per attempt. He's one of the most dangerous. I think he led the league in vertical pass, total QBR. That's when you're throwing the ball 11 or more yards downfield, trying to stretch the field. So he has these great stats that way. So if you're Atlanta, you're saying we're going to sit back and stop the vertical pass because we don't think New England's running game is that dangerous. But that's never something you want to do against New England because although their running game hasn't been elite this year, it's good enough. You've got Blount being the power back, and you have 2 backs. You got Lewis and you got White. You got 2 backs who can catch passes. So if you've got that and you're going to put that after Atlanta's linebackers, I think Atlanta's got a lot of things to worry about defensively.
Yes, and the Eagles ran for 200 yards in that game, which means, this team can be run on. The question is, do the Patriots want to make this a running attack game, or do they want to put the ball, in the hands of Brady? It's hard to say, let's take the ball out of Brady's hand and just hand it off, but isn't that maybe the best way to go about it?
Oh, they'll do that, though. If they have to, they'll do. You look at the past and things, and there've been games where they faced a really tough pass defense. If you look at teams that face a tough pass defense, it's like a disparity between how strong the pass defense is and how strong the rush defense is. They will run the ball. This game isn't that. I think they can go after the pass game or the running game. But if they've got that kind of situation, they'll definitely want to mix things up and say, okay, we want to slow the game down some with Matt Ryan, and I think make this a running-centric game. I also think that if they start to slow the game down, one of the things I found in looking at Atlanta, they've got a really run-centric offense. It's really running back-centric. They're not a Matt Ryan-centric offense, or they're not a Julio Jones-centric offense. That's what people think. They really are a running back-centric offense. But I think if New England starts to run the ball and slows the game down, I don't know that Atlanta is going to say we're just going to, okay, now we need to run if we run the ball where we're slowing the game down too much. I think it might make them uncomfortable.
Let's stick then with the Patriots offense. And, we talk about, yes, they can run the ball in this game, but Chris Hogan, last time they played, 9 catches, 180 yards. And I think we talked a little bit about the Patriots that there is no consistency from week to week in their offense. They will change the game. But if they are to throw the ball, I think the Falcons, their secondary is an issue as well. This team can be thrown on.
Yeah, the thing is that the Falcons they've got talent in the secondary. I got to give them that. They've got a lot of physical talent. The guys who can ball hawk. They got guys they're very fast secondary. Having said that, they're inexperienced, so they make some coverage errors. You'll see them like if you've got receivers who are running a switch in the offensive line where they've got 2 receivers next to each other and they cross before they go downfield. A lot of times you run a wheel route off that. You do that. Sometimes Atlanta's cornerbacks get messed up in that. Their safeties will also make mistakes. I think you can get them into errors. I have a feeling that New England's going to throw a lot of. I think they're going to try and throw as many complex pass patterns at them as they can, do as many route combinations as possible, and test this defense's ability to be where it's supposed to when it's supposed to be there. Because if they make a mistake, the last person you want to do is against Tom Brady.
Why or how has the Falcons' defense got better, and how much have they gotten better? Because the numbers earlier in the season and pretty much throughout the regular season did not look like a Super Bowl defense.
Yeah, during the playoffs, they blitz more often. ESPN Stats Information did a posting, and find it on the ESPN Stats Information blog, where it talks about how the Falcons were they were in the bottom 10 of the league in blitz percentage coming into the playoffs, and they've almost doubled their blitz percentage rate. It's been a significant increase. I think they figured they needed to get after offenses, but you don't want to blitz Tom Brady. That's not something you want to do. If you blitz Tom Brady, you may get there on occasion, but the offensive line this year, if you did that in 2015, the way the offensive line is playing, you can get away with it. In 2016, the offensive line is not great. It's not up to the New England offensive lines of some of their past Super Bowl years, but it's solid. They do get a good enough job, good run blocking. They've got a middle of the pack good blocking rate for run blocking, and in pass blocking, they're solid enough. They're slightly above average in pass blocking rate. So if you're going to go blitz Tom Brady, you're not going to find a weakness there. So I think what Atlanta's been able to do during the playoffs to get more passers, I don't think that's something I'm replicate in the Super Bowl.
I asked the question to the listeners during the week. Take Brady and Belichick out of the answer. What impresses you about New England?
That on defense, it's it's hard to take Belichick out of the equation, but on defense, if you're talking about just from a personnel perspective, I talk about Atlanta being out of position, making mistakes and things. New England doesn't make those mistakes. They don't get out of position. They're where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. They don't make coverage errors. And they're also, for New England, they're very structurally sound, also in technique and the like. If you're going to try and run stretch plays like Atlanta does, you've got to stop that by having somebody set the edge. Well, New England sets the edge very well. If you're going to run counter plays, if you're going to try and get power offense, you've got to attack the gap. You got to attack the trap on a counter play. New England does that very well. Their safeties are exceptional too. I say New England has an exceptional. They may not be thought of as exceptional safeties, but they do what they're supposed to do. They get in the box and they'll stop the run. They keep you from getting a deep pass over the top. I mean, they're not big playmakers. You're not going to think of them as big hitters and things. And McCourty's really good. Maybe he gets that kind of push, but really you don't think of this as being I don't put them in the Legion of Boom category, but their safeties are that good.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider here on the Sports Bash, looking at Super Bowl 51. Matt Ryan and that offense, highest scoring in the league. New England and that defense, lowest points per game. It's similar to last year where you had Carolina with that offense and Denver with that defense. But New England doesn't stick out as the top scoring against defense in the league. It seems like that was like a surprise when I heard that.
Yeah, it is. But in New England's case, as I mentioned before, I've been doing a lot of studies on this for the past week or so, and the thing that New England's going to want to do is they're going to want to stop Atlanta's rushing attack, because everybody talks about it being a Matt Ryan offense. Matt Ryan's the MVP, as I mentioned before. This is not a Matt Ryan-centric offense. He is important. Don't get me wrong. He's a great passer, and he is exceptionally important to this offense. And so is Julio Jones. This is a run-back-centric offense, a running-back-centric offense. Atlanta had 133 play-action pass attempts this year. That was most in the league, and it was almost 20 more than second place. They had 1,531 passing yards off of play-action passes, according to ESPN Stats Information. That's over 400 yards more than second place. They are run-back-centric, and I think that New England's going to say, fine. New England, as I mentioned before, they had the best good blocking yards per attempt allowed on defense, meaning that if you got good run blocking on them, which is really important because good blocking runs are 5 times as valuable as bad blocking runs. If you got good run blocking on them, you gain the fewest yards per attempt than any other team in the league. So they're going to be able to stop the running game. If they can keep the running game from hitting the home runs and they can make that play action less valuable, now it's more, okay, now Ryan, if your play action's not working, can you just drop back and beat this defense? I don't think you can.
How about you talk about the stats in this game. Julio Jones, we know he's great. I think the Patriots might have their hands full with him, but it seems that when Jones goes off, Falcons don't succeed as much.
Yeah, and a couple of games where Jones went off, it had to do with, he had one game where, I'm trying to remember, there was one game where, the game where he had I think, a couple of 250 yards, I forget exactly the exact number of yardage was, but that was due to coverage errors. That was due to the player he was playing was just, it was coverage errors, and the guy who was playing was just a terrible cornerback. So in this game, you're not going to have that situation. You've got very good cornerbacks. There's nobody on the Patriots secondary who you look at and say, remember, I've got the red, yellow, green rated system as far as coverage players, and green is a target player, a guy you want to go after. New England has none. They have either reds or yellows all across the board, and so I mean, you don't have a target. Somebody can say this is a pigeon, as it were, we can go after. You don't have that, and when you've got that game for Julio Jones' case, in fact, a lot of the games in his career where he's put up big numbers have been when he's faced really bad opponents. So this is not that case. I have a feeling Julio's still going to do solid. He'll 5 or 6 passes, 60, 70 yards, maybe catch a touchdown or something. If you look at New England's history, that's what they'll give up. But I don't think he's going to be a difference maker.
I think one interesting thing, Beasley, we talked about him Monday, but while we just talked about the Falcons' defense improving, can they pressure Brady? And if they can't, that seems to be the difference in a game, right? I mean, if you can't get to Brady and they can run the ball, this seems like it almost has blowout written on it.
Yeah, the more when I first saw this matchup, I started looking at it. I thought maybe Atlanta's got a really good chance to win this game. And every time I do another study, it would be, wow, New England's either as good, like on vertical passes, Ryan is he's what a great passer is. Brady's better slightly, but he's been better this year, which you wouldn't think given the way the season has played out. And you start looking at a number of factors, and you look at how weak Atlanta's defense is, and they're equal in special teams, according to ESPN's special teams metric. They're equal in special teams efficiency. So you start looking at it, and I don't see a place where I say Atlanta is appreciably better, and I see a lot of places where they're appreciably worse. So yeah, I could see this as if not a blowout, a significant win in New England's direction.
We'll get your pick on this game coming up here very shortly. We talked about the Patriots defense has done a really good job against some of the better receivers in the league. They do a good job at the line. Can they limit Julio Jones? We know that's a big factor, but you talked about Freeman and the run game and the Falcons wanting to run the ball. It seems to me that that's what the Falcons are going to want to have to do is can they run the ball against the Patriots?
Yeah, if I'm the Falcons, the thing is they've gotten in shootout mode this year. They're one of 19 teams to in NFL history score 500 or more points. So Atlanta's got one of the best offenses in NFL history, and they've scored more than 24 points. I think it was 11 times they scored 24 more points this season, but they're only 6-5. Or no, they gave it 24 more. They've scored 24 more points 15 times. They gave up 24 more points 11 times. They were 6-5 in those games, so they gave it 24 more points. And New England has scored 24 more points on 15 occasions themselves. But New England's only given up 24 more points 3 times this year. It's tied for the fewest in the league. So I think if you're Atlanta, you might want to take the idea that we need to turn this into a low-scoring game. Most of the time, they try and get the shootout. I think this is a game where they say, "Look, we're not going to win a shootout with New England. Our defense is too bad, and their defense is too good. So we need to try to win a 2017 game. We need to try and be willing to slow things down just like they are, and see if we can get in the fourth quarter and be close."
Yeah, and, Matt Ryan and the offense, they've scored a lot of points this year. And the one game when they played Philly, they really struggled, and they looked pedestrian in that game, right? So it seems that is – and they didn't run the ball very well in that game either. And that was one of the reasons because the Eagles ran the ball on them and kind of kept the offense off the field. But it seems that if you can limit their opportunities on offense with any team, that they're going to be a struggle. But that gets them out of their rhythm. That's the big problem there, is they're a very timing-based, rhythm-based offense.
Yeah, and because so much of their offense is play action, too. And usually on play action, if you're doing that, it's a longer developing play and you're trying to hit passes downfield, which, again, lends itself well to a shootout. But if you're trying to slow things down a bit, you don't want to be taking those chances and saying, hey, we're going to go take some shot plays, and it didn't work. So, I mean, it kind of goes for Atlanta. Atlanta might want to say, if we want to, if the niggas is stopping our running game, we may want to be doing a lot of play calls that are maybe short pass combinations, maybe spot routes, maybe stick routes and things, maybe stick combination plays for coverages and things. And say, this is what we want to do. We're going to play on these little short routes and do some dink and dunks and maybe switch things up that way. Because as much as you don't want to change your formula going into a championship game, I think they need to at least look at page 2 of their playbook, because I think if they try and do what they've been doing all year, I just don't think that, because Belichick is going to have play calls to stop the things that they do well and stop those play action plays. So if I'm Atlanta, I may want to have those as decoys and say, now I'm going to do what I really want to do, maybe do some things that I don't normally do.
Where does the Atlanta offense need to target on the New England defense?
If I had to, you'd get anybody but Butler. I'd go after any cornerback but Butler. Butler's really good, and I think you can beat Butler. You don't want to go completely away from him, but I think they want to target the cornerback. I don't think they want to get in situations where they're doing anything where they're going after the safeties. I think they just want to stay away from that altogether because that's going to be attacking New England's strength. If I had to pick a weakness in coverage, it would be the other cornerbacks outside of Butler are good, but they're not great, and so you can make a living going at them. You can get a profit on passes their way, but I would be throwing to Butler only if I'm doing it with Jones and in favorable situations, and I wouldn't be throwing up the safeties anymore than I have to.
If you are the New England offense, where are you targeting on the Atlanta defense?
Any of their rookies, all of their young players in the secondary. I am putting a lot of pressure on them to say, I still want to run the football, and I want to make them pay if they want to sit back in coverage and things. But if I'm them, I want to try and mix those people up as much as I can. I want to do as many complex passing schemes as I possibly can throw at them because, again, they make mistakes. And if you look at the AFC Championship game against Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's defense was young but talented and fast, and they were ball hawking pretty well going into that game. And then you look in that game, they were discombobulated. And you're going to have them running all over the place and players wide open. I think they could do the same thing. So if I'm them, I'm trying to put pressure on that Atlanta secondary as early as I can. What
about where's the weak spot on the Atlanta offense? Where does the New England defense, where can they get some pressure?
If I had to think of, well, first off, if Mac is hurting this, he's got the fibula. If he's out, that could be a very big issue. You could just put a tilt and nose tackle right over him and say we're going to go pressure right up the gut. That'd be one place. I think another is the step down. As good as some of the other players have played outside of Jones, the step down from Jones is just significant. I still think Sanu, he's led the league in catch percentage since week 8. So he is a very high percentage receiver. But I think if you disrupt that offense, and I think if you can take Jones out and be physical with the receivers, I think that offense, they lose that timing. So I just don't think they have a really good 1B target outside of Jones.
So where do you like the Atlanta defense against the New England offense?
There really aren't many places unless Beasley can break out if he can have a good game. I think that New England's offensive line, if I had to pick one place where they might be able to make an impact, it is the offensive line because New England's run blocking has been, again, just right about average this year. It's not been great. So if you commit to stopping that, you can take that away from New England potentially. And in pass blocking, I think I think if I'm Atlanta on defense, unless they're going to go for that kind of we're going to dink and dunk, we're going to try and slow the game down and make New England try and run the football and hope we can get them to play that kind of game. Now, if they don't do that and New England starts to pass, I think if you're Atlanta, you've got to say it's going to be a risk. We may end up getting blown out if we do it, but you better blitz. You better be doing what you've been doing earlier. It probably won't work, but you'd better do it because they're not going to get a pass rush if they don't blitz.
All right, KC Joyner here. Your pick for Super Bowl 51.
My official pick with ESPN, they asked us to submit them last week. I said 34-27 New England. I could be talked into now after doing even more looks to say it could be 34-17, 34-24. If New England doesn't win by double digits, I'd kind of be surprised, and I think they'll put up 30-plus points. And New England by a pretty heavy margin.
Okay, so you like the Patriots to win, and you like them pretty big. Did you watch the XFL 30 for 30?
I have not had a chance to see that yet. I got to get my XFL football out. I actually have one of those electric footballs. They talked about the sandpaper and things. I definitely want to sit down and watch that. I got to get that ball out.
It was pretty good. That was 15 years ago. Were you watching the league? Were you covering the league? What do you remember about the XFL's one season?
Believe it or not, I actually have taped probably 30 of their games that year, whatever many they showed, whatever they showed on TV. I actually taped those games. So if I wanted to go back and watch them, I'm not sure when I go to use that.
Were you doing metrics of XFL games?
I was preparing myself to do them. I wasn't quite in the industry yet. I was preparing myself to do them. But yeah, recording all their games. I even have the little mini football helmets and things, the little gumball helmets. They actually have those out, and I got like a full collection.
Oh boy! Like we were talking about this the other day because Goodell in the State of the NFL, he was asked about a developmental league, and my stance has kind of been the NFL doesn't want to finance a developmental league. The owners don't want to pay to operate another league. They love the XFL. They love this spring talk because that means they get free football and don't have to finance it.
I think that'd be part of it. The concern would be if it ever gets popular enough. I remember living in Michigan during when the USFL was around, And I can tell you that the Michigan Panthers, who won the championship in the first year of the USFL, they were more popular than the Lions, and the Lions were a playoff team. There were more Michigan Panthers fans I saw around town, and there were these people who were like fired up for it than there were for the Lions, because the Lions had given the Detroit, decades of mediocre football. So I think that's the concern, is that if you put it into an area where there might be other teams, we put it in an area where there might be something close, the fans might flock to that team. Like if you win a Michigan, hey, the Lions only won playoff win since 1957, so if you get a winning team there, maybe you could do the same thing. So that would be a concern for the league, but I think, they would like to see some developmental football, because again, especially when it comes to like quarterbacks and things, if you're trying to get quarterbacks who didn't play in pro-style offenses in college, and now if you can give them a year or two where they can play in the developmental league, now you can improve that the level of play of that position.
Yeah, now, I mean, the USFL was an established professional, league. I mean, it wasn't so much a developmental league. They were going after the pie, right? They were trying to go after the NFL's, players. And so you were getting guys coming out of college making the choice: do I want to go NFL or USFL? The XFL was kind of just an alternative of football, not necessarily getting the level, the caliber of players.
Yeah, and the XFL also had the central management where you didn't have, you've got one person essentially running the league, so you can say you've got all these independent teams, but in the end, you're being run by the league, so you wonder, I'm not saying that there wasn't independence, but if they'd survived long term, you'd say, well, maybe the league is trying to do things to make this team succeed over this team because they own them. I think you have to have separate ownership groups. I think if you have one central ownership for any kind of a league of that nature, I just think you're going to get minor league baseball where you have developmental and things. But I don't know if you're ever going to get the fan interest. And maybe that'd work perfect for the NFL to have a minor league feeder team like that you never really draw the interest. But if it's not going to draw the interest, the NFL is going to say, why in the world are we funding it? Why would anybody else fund it if they don't think they're going to turn it into something bigger?
Always comes back to the money, right? That's why there is no developmental league. The NFL doesn't have one now.
Yeah. Well, if the NFL can get it shut down to where the college players will stay longer, too, if they can get them to where they can – they've been trying to push towards that, too, to say, players, you need to stay in college longer. And maybe if they can get the colleges to start paying more, start paying their players sums where the players don't feel desperate to have to go to the NFL, they can get something of that nature. I don't think it'll happen, or it will not. They won't to the extent that the NFL needs it to. But the NFL could really use some of these players staying in college, because some of these quarterbacks who come out even from this year's draft, some of these quarterbacks who come out now, if they stayed another year, they'd probably actually be better prospects. And some players are making wise decisions and getting the one more year worth of training in college, but a lot of them aren't, and that's causing a dilution of the college game, and it's also sending players who aren't ready to play to the NFL level.
All right, you like Patriots? By the way, who is this, a Brady MVP or other?
Hey, with that defense, with that pass defense, it's probably a Brady MVP. I would, if I had to bet the house on anything, it would be on that. If you're looking for a sleeper, though, I'd say Hogan, if it's anybody, because Hogan's their big play receiver. And if Brady throws 3 touchdown passes to Hogan, they're not giving the MVP to Hogan, they're giving the MVP to Brady. So I think it's Brady's to lose.
Let's give one to Hogan. That's a great story. All right, KC Joyner, we'll recap the game on Monday's show. Should be a fun one, and of course, enjoy Super Bowl 51, pal.
Same to you, man. Appreciate it.